Hello and welcome back. I'm Jimmy Knott. It's my joy to be teaching this series about leadership entitled Being a Leader Worth Following. We're halfway done. Today is session 7. We've done 6. My goal was to do 12, 20 to 30 minute each sessions on what it's like, what it takes to be a leader worth following. The core of this is based on my leadership life verse, Psalm 78:72, where Asaph writes of David, "And David shepherded them with integrity of heart. With skillful hands he led them." How did David lead? What did Asaph observe about him that caused others to allow David to invest and to influence their lives and to be a leader, a credible leader that's worth following? Asaph identified 3 critically key components in David's life that positioned him to be a leader worth following. We've already talked about the first and the most important one, and that is integrity of heart or authentic character. That's the core. That's the substance. That is the non-negotiable ingredient. We started last time looking at the second key component, and that is the component of exceptional competency. Asaph said David had skillful hands. Skillful hands. He was good at what he did, and that gave him a platform and made him someone that was worth following. We defined exceptional competency as this. Someone is exceptionally competent when they know what to do. They have the talent, skills, and ability to do it. They know how to do it. And then they have the discipline and the work ethic and the perseverance to get it done. That's what makes someone exceptionally competent. And there are two key pieces that we really need to understand about our competency. See, competency requires great self-awareness, and self-awareness comes through rigorous self-assessment and through honest feedback, especially in identifying 2 key areas and resources that God has entrusted to you and me. Those are our greatest abilities and then our deepest passions. God is at work in us both to will and to work for His good pleasure, Paul writes in Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 and 13. God is at work producing within us both the passions and the abilities to carry out His purpose for our lives. And that purpose is directly related to how God has designed us. We are the way we are. We can do certain few things exceptionally well when we know what those are and we develop them. We can do those, and that provides fulfillment, and that identifies our calling and enables us to achieve the purpose that God gave to us. Last time, you may recall, I gave you 3 circles that were coming together. And in those 3 circles, it was, what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? And what do you get paid to do? What do you get paid to do? And it's where all 3 of those circles intersect that we really find our sweet spot, as it were our dream job. Loving what we do, we find our calling in life. Unfortunately, most people don't find it. I read recently in some Gallup polling research information, some astounding statistics that support the fact that most folks don't find that sweet spot when they can and they should. 17%, Gallup reports, 17% of the American population goes to work and gets to do what they do best and enjoy most. 17%. That's all. 70 to 80% say they are disengaged in their work. Well, both of those underscore the reality that many folks do not understand what they're really good at and what they enjoy doing. And when we find that, and we're able to find folks who are willing to pay for us to do that, we really begin to find our calling in life. Now, once we've identified, as it were, this sweet spot in our life, we all have it. I mean, I don't know if you've stopped to think, I'm an avid sports person, that own a lot of sports equipment. For instance, a golf club. I've played golf much of my life. There's a spot on the head of a golf club that when you hit it there, it goes farther, faster, with less effort than any other place. And I know you know what that is. It's a sweet spot. There's a sweet spot on a softball bat. There's a sweet spot on a tennis racket. There's a sweet spot on a baseball bat. And when you hit it there, okay, you get maximum results. You and I have a sweet spot. And the sooner we can define that sweet spot, it will then allow us to move our competency from ordinary to extraordinary, from just being average and normal to way above average, to exceptional, even to a genius in certain areas, where we can begin to maximize our competency and become exceptional, which will give us a larger platform for influence, where we have a greater possibility of making a difference in the lives of others. So today's lesson is how do I move toward exceptional competency? How can I take the talents and abilities that God has entrusted to me along with the passions and move those from average to extraordinary to special and to great? Well, I've got 10 suggestions for you. 10 suggestions for you in being able to do that. Before I do that, I want to read you a quote. Max Lucado is one of my favorite writers. And some time ago in reading his book, The Cure for the Uncommon Life, he wrote these words: "You were born pre-packed. God looked at your entire life, determined your assignment, and gave you the tools to do the job. God packed you on purpose for a purpose." And my goal is to help you to identify those tools in which you are exceptionally competent by God's design in your life, and then to move those towards, because we've got to cooperate with God here and take that which He has entrusted to us and identify it, and then to develop it to its fullest potential and competency. So let me give you 10 suggestions that will help you and I move in that direction. Okay? Now, these first four really kind of run together. It's like if you want to become exceptional, you got to take the talent, the resources that God has entrusted to you, and then you've got to multiply that times what I call investment. And investment includes knowledge, skill, and practice. Investment is when you increase your knowledge about a particular ability or skill, and then you add selective skills to enhance, and then you intentionally, deliberately practice using those abilities and those talents. All of that comes together for investment. And when you take talent and you multiply it times investment, then what you get is exceptional competency. So these first four really address that equation. So let's look at them. Number one suggestion to move toward exceptional competency. Number one, clearly identify your best abilities. Clearly identify your best abilities. What are you good at? What do you enjoy? Clearly identify your best abilities and non-abilities, and wisely and intentionally allocate those resources. I know we talked about that last time and even in the open today, but it's just critically important to do the self-assessment, to get the honest feedback, and to clearly identify those few things that you really enjoy and that you're really good at. And at the same time you're doing that, you're also identifying your non-talents and your non-abilities. So you can identify those. Don't spend time trying to improve those. They'll never become anything better than average. There's probably already people around you who are average and better in those things that are non-talent areas for you. Learn to manage around them and to hand those off to others. Identify those talented areas and begin to leverage those in your life and to grow those. Let me see if I can give you an illustration on this. Let's say that you're driving your car. And as you drive your car, you've got your top abilities, your greatest abilities, your best tools, your greatest assets. They're right here at your disposal for you to use if you had to call on those. I mean, you know how to reach for them, they're right there. And then over here in the passenger seat next to you, you can get to them. Takes a little bit more effort. It's kind of your next level of talents, abilities, and strength. You can get to them if you need them, but they're not as accessible here. Now, behind you in the back seat is a whole nother litany of talents and abilities and strengths. They're there, they're available, but it's probably risky to reach back and to get them and to try to use them because you're probably not going to be very good at them anyways. And then let's imagine there's additional abilities and talents and resources. Yes, they're available, but they're in your trunk or they're in the back of your SUV. And to get to those, you got to stop the automobile and you got to go back to the storage and you got to get them out. I mean, why would you do that? Why would you even reach in the back seat when the best of who you are and what you do is right there at your disposal? So it's worth all the time and the effort and the inventories and the assessments and the feedback to clearly identify those talents and abilities and strengths that are a few of the things that you're good at, that with the right kind of investment, you could become great and move toward exceptional competency in your life. One of the best maxims that you could practice in your life and my life would be this: stop doing what you're not good at. Stop it. Hand that off, manage around it to somebody else. Find those few things that have been patterned to some degree all of your life that people have said that you're good at, who called on you to help them with, that you're the go-to person for. Those are good places to start in clearly identifying what those top talents and abilities are, and then, as we'll talk about in a minute, to develop and to grow them. Okay? That is suggestion number one. Number two, and again, these first four all go together. Gain all of the knowledge you can in all the ways that you can to learn more about your top abilities and passions. That's the knowledge component in the investment component. Read about your abilities. Like my top abilities are teaching and challenging and exhorting and leading. And I spend so much of my reading and watching and interviewing and talking with people that can help me develop those areas from a knowledge perspective. You need to gain all the knowledge that you possibly can, whether it's through reading books, whether it's on the internet, whether it's through talking to someone that at least you esteem to hold a great deal of knowledge in those passions and abilities areas that are in your life as entrusted to you by God. You've got to grow in knowledge if you're going to increase your capacity and your competence. Here's suggestion number three. Select specific skills to add, to work on, to improve your abilities. For instance, most people fall into two camps when it comes to abilities: very people-related or very task or result-related. I tend to be more task and result-related. But let's say you're a very people-related person in terms of your skills and your abilities. Think of some skills that you could read, study, and grow and improve that would enhance your ability to listen to people and to make an investment in people. I mean, I could think of one now, and that would be a listening skill. Learn how to do active and receptive listening is only going to up your ability to relate well to people and to build meaningful relationships with them, and for them to allow you access and influence into their life. So adding skills, the necessary skills to enhance those top abilities is critically important. And then number four, remember again, 1, 2, 3, and 4 kind of all run together. Deliberately practice. Oh, that's so important. Deliberately, intentionally, plan. Deliberately practice using your top talents in order to gain experience and to bring improvement. I don't know if you're a sports person, but I think of Michael Jordan years ago. I think of LeBron James now, and I think of these Olympic athletes, and I think of folks who are great musicians and artists and so on. These men and women have spent years developing and growing their craft and their talents and abilities. They didn't just wake up one day and be the best at what they do. It took a deliberate investment and choice in order for them to become the best of what they do. And you and I are going to have to do that as well. Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Outliers, gives a kind of a general principle that talks about what does it take to become an expert at some particular craft or skill or talent. What are the hours it takes, as it were, to become exceptionally competent at something? And he estimates it's about 10 10,000 hours to position yourself for that. Now, for somebody to put 10,000 hours in reading, growing, practicing, and developing a particular talent and competency in their life, my best estimate, again, depending on how many hours a day or a week that they do that, that is approximately a 10 to 15 year process. But just think about that for a few minutes. Let's imagine that you're in your 30s. What if you become very intentional and deliberate in identifying those top competencies in your life, and then you add the knowledge and the skill, and you deliberately practice that craft and hone it and sharpen it, and you do that in the next 10 to 15 years, and now you're in your 40s, you have become the best of the best at that particular ability or talent in your field. Well, that's going to set you apart, and it's going to give you a larger platform, and it's going to give you a greater capacity and opportunity to make a difference in the lives of others. Because I'm telling you, we live in a world that worships talent and exceptional competency. We tend to listen to those people more than we do to the average, and especially to the non-talented. Okay? I want to show you a picture now. A picture of 3 buckets to help this come alive. Okay, there are 3 buckets. On the far left is a bucket that you could entitle "What You Do." What do you do for a living? The center bucket asks this question: what are the tasks? What are the functions necessary to do what you do? And then to the far right is the final bucket, and that is what abilities, what passions, what skills are required in order to do the tasks and the functions that allow you to do what it is that you do to make a contribution at your work. So you got those 3 buckets. So let me begin on the far left. What do you do? What is your core responsibility? Could you put what you do for a living in one sentence? Work on that. See if you can do that. Here's mine. I create and communicate content, generally biblical content. I develop it, I create it, and then I communicate it, whether it's writing or whether it's in a video, whatever the case may be. I create and communicate content that develops believers and grows leaders. That's what I do in a sentence. What do you do in a sentence? Now, move to the middle bucket and ask yourself this question. What are the tasks and functions that I need to be able to do in order to do my job? Well, in my case, to create and communicate biblical content that grows believers and develops leaders, here's what I wrote down. I got to be able to research by reading books, by going online. I got to be able to write. I got to be able to edit. I got to be able to lead. I got to be able to communicate. I have to be able to organize and structure and implement. I got to be able to analyze. I got to be able to motivate. Those are just some of the particular tasks and functions that I must be able to do my job. Now, on the far right bucket is what are the specific talents, abilities, and strengths that I need to have in order to carry out those tasks and functions. My three greatest abilities are teaching, leading, and exhorting. Teaching, leading, and exhorting. And depending on what the task is at hand, which of those comes to the forefront is whatever is required. But when you look at those three specific abilities, talent, strengths, and abilities, teaching, leading, and exhorting, in order to do those, okay, to teach, I got to be a learner. I got to have a strong belief system. I got to be able to have a good mind and intellect. I got to be able to arrange things and to structure them. Those are specific talents and abilities in order to be able to teach. What about leading? I've got to be able to be responsible. I've got to be able to get things done in order to be a leader. And then the last one, exhorting. I got to be able to move people, to challenge people, to motivate people, to pour into people, to coach people, to relate to people. Those are some of the specific abilities that are required for the task and the tasks that are required in order for me to do what I do. So I got these three buckets. Now let me ask you this question. Which of those three buckets do you spend most of your time working on, if any of them? My guess is it's probably the far left. Trying to do a better job at what your contribution is, at what you're being paid to do. Let me make a suggestion. Start on the far right. Start on the far right. Clearly identifying what God has entrusted to you in your top talents, abilities, and passions. Clearly identify those. Add knowledge, add skill, and deliberately practice. Because when you do that, it's going to shift, and now you're going to move to the middle bucket, and you're going to become more competent and more astute at the tasks and functions that are needed to do what you do. Now as you become better at the tasks and the functions that enable you to accomplish what is in the far left bucket, and that is, this is what I do. This is my job in a sentence. So I would encourage you, if you want to grow toward exceptional competency, grow toward exceptionalism, and grow to be special and extraordinary at what you do and what you get paid to do, and I do hope it's in the sweet spot for you. It really starts on the far left with a clarity of your top greatest abilities and deepest passions, and then developing them through knowledge, developing them by adding skill, and developing them by consistently and deliberately practicing them. Okay? All right, number five tip or suggestion in moving toward exceptional competence, moving from good to great, from average to extraordinary. Once you discover what you're good at, once you identify what your deepest passions are, next, discover the circumstances in which you are most productive and use them to your advantage. Discover the circumstances when you are most productive and use them to your advantage. Like, here are three sentences that everybody needs to finish to help identify those circumstances. I am most productive when? I am most productive when? In what setting, under what circumstances are you at your best? Are you better in the morning, in the afternoons, at night? Do you work better alone, individually, or paired up with someone, or in a team or a group setting? Are you in your best circumstance when the environment is quiet? Or is being in a noisy environment, energizing for you? You will become more competent when you can define when and where you are most productive. Here's a second statement to finish. I am energized by. What kind of people, what kind of activities are you doing that bring energy and focus into your life and into your work? And then the third is the opposite of that, is I am drained by who and by what kind of activities. Oh, you want to stay away from those as much as possible and hand those off to others, or you'll be bored and unfocused and drained all the time. One of the important suggestions in order to become someone who's exceptionally competent is to discover the circumstances, the when, the where, and the with who, that you are most productive using the talents and abilities that God has entrusted to you. Number six suggestion. Discipline yourself. Oh, that's a hard one. Discipline yourself. It's about self-control and self-mastery. Discipline yourself to stay focused and to work hard. Have a relentless drive to improve and to get better. Build strong habits. Building strong habits and being disciplined is something that is easier for some than for others, but something that we can all develop. And choosing to be more disciplined. You know, I used to say that some people are undisciplined, or in my life there are certain things that I'm undisciplined about. And I really changed my thinking on that a number of years ago. I don't exercise enough. I exercise some, but I I am very disciplined at not exercising enough. Now, you could call that undisciplined. No, I'm very disciplined at it. I don't do it as much as I need to do it. See, the problem is not undisciplined, okay? The problem is being disciplined in the right direction and making the right choices and building the right habits. Critically important, okay? Tip number 7. Tip number 7, leverage your greatness. Now, your greatness is when you are maximizing and developing, again, your greatest abilities and your deepest passions, where all of those are merging, okay? Leverage your greatness to your advantage for greater influence. That's what will give you the competitive edge. Remember, the greater the competence, the larger the platform for influence. The world takes notice of talent. Leverage that greatness in your life, especially at work. Number 8, share the knowledge of your best abilities with family, boss, and colleagues. Don't assume that they know what you do best. Share with them, this is what I am really good at. This is what energizes me. This is what drains me. Don't assume that they know that. Be sure to inform them. Here is when and where and how I am at my best for you as an employee, for you as a wife or a husband or whatever the case may be. Share that knowledge of your best abilities and deepest of passions with others. Number 9, develop a strategy. Got to think about this. Develop a strategy, a plan to align your top abilities with your job. With your job. I mean, if you've never done this exercise, do it. By now, hopefully, you've already identified your top abilities and passions. Okay? Why don't you take the job that you have, that you're being paid, and write down what are the talents, abilities, and strengths that are required to do this job with excellence. And then compare those two and see if it's compatible. If it's not, you're going to be frustrated all day long, and you're going to be unfulfilled and disengaged. But if a lot of the talents and abilities and strengths that you have are compatible with what the job requires, then develop a strategy to use them more and more and more in your day-to-day working abilities, okay? Again, maybe look at those buckets that we talked about a few moments ago. And then number 10, keep growing. Oh, it's so important. Keep growing, developing, and investing in your best abilities and deepest passions. You see, our greatest room for growth is not in our areas of non-talent or weaknesses. It's in the areas of where we already built in talents, strengths, and abilities. Because that's where we learn more quickly, that's where we're energized, that's where we're more focused in our lives. Grow those top abilities. Identify people around you, family, friends, co-workers, who do the things that you do well, and talk about how they do those and why they do them well. Identify people and interview people that you esteem and respect and you think that do things that you do well, exceptionally well, and talk to them about how they do them and how they grow them as well. You know, really, this is all about stewardship, that God has entrusted to you and me an enormous amount of resources in our lives. Primarily, as I said, it's our greatest abilities and our deepest passions. Now, it's your responsibility, my responsibility, to be good stewards. So, what's the outcome of identifying these competencies and moving them towards exceptionalism? What's the return on the investment? Just quickly, a few things that I think will motivate and encourage you, okay? It will decrease stress, worry, and anxiety. I mean, when you get to do what you do best and enjoy most of the time, a whole lot less stress and a whole lot less worry and a whole lot less anxiety. Number 2, it increases your focus and engagement. Gallup says you're 6 times more engaged in what you do if you get to focus on what you do best most of the time. 3, it increases your fulfillment and sense of well-being. When you do what you do best, you're 3 times more focused on it. Number 4, it will increase your productivity. You'll be more productive. You'll get more results from doing what you do best. And then number 5, it will increase your opportunity. It will increase your opportunity. You remember Proverbs 22:29? Do you see someone skilled in his work? He will stand before kings. The idea there is he will have a greater opportunity to have greater influence with his life. This second rock, exceptional competency, critically important. But let me give you a warning. It is possible that your exceptional competency, it has the potential to take you farther than your character can sustain you. Keep the setting strong. Next time we'll look at the third component in Psalm 78, 72, building relational connections. I'll see you then.